Hello, I'm Janet Anderson. I call to order the Town of Lewisboro Planning Board meeting for Tuesday, April 15th, 2025 at 7:32 p.m. So for everyone here, the exit is the way you came in. The exits to my left are for emergency only. In order to comply with the open meetings law, we must meet in person. We do not have the capacity for the public to attend by Zoom, nor can we stream our meetings to YouTube. So we will post an audio recording of this meeting to the town website. So as people speak, and I ask you to speak up, it's for the audio. Materials considered at this meeting are available in the agenda packet that's posted for this meeting. And members of the public can always express their views by mail or email to planning@lewisborony.gov. Kirsten Conrad, our planning board administrator, has confirmed that the meeting has been duly noticed and legal notice requirements fulfilled. Joining me tonight from the town of Lewisboro are members of the planning board, John Guzmano and Charlene Indelicato. Bruce and
down the road, so he'll be here in a minute.
Okay, I expect both Bruce Thompson and Paul Fusco to join shortly. We also have Joe Tremelli that's here attending for KSCJ Consulting, filling in for Jan Johannesson, and Council Judd Siebert is here. Also, Planning Board Administrator Kirsten Conrad, Building Inspector Kevin Kelly, and CAC Co-Chair Sally Frank. Okay, so with that, let's get started on the agenda. The first item on our agenda is calendar number 06-24PB, calendar number 06-24SW. This is Baccio Trattoria parking at 12 North Salem Road, Cross River, New York. We have reviewed this, and last month we asked Jan to prepare a memo, a resolution for us. We have that resolution. It's been circulated, but do you want to hit the high points of it?
I would love to. I don't know if I have a big stack of papers here. I don't think I have the resolution.
Oh, okay. I'll ask Judd. Luckily, we have backup.
Yeah, so this is a resolution providing for an amended approval for Baccio. You'll recall that the initial approval entails the construction of the parking lot at 19 Mark Mead and reconfiguration and improvement to the existing parking lot on the Baccio premises. The resolution recites the prior approvals and then indicates what was giving rise to this particular application is there was a need to do additional reconfiguration because of County Department of Health and some site constraint issues on the Baccio piece. Mm-hmm. So there has been a reconfiguration of the parking on that lot. It will involve 12 additional on-site parking spaces, installation of 1 additional accessible parking space, resulting in 3 total accessible parking spaces on site. There will be relocation of an existing sidewalk. There have been stormwater improvements and reconfiguration of the septic system and improvements to the public water system.
I don't think they reconfigured the septic system. I think that's why we changed
trenches.
Of the trenches.
Of the trenches. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that. In recognition of the review and the fact that while there are some physical alterations on the Baccio piece, it's basically the same approval, just in a slightly different form. So you reaffirm the neg deck, and you are granting the amended approval consistent with the site plans that have been provided.
Right. And so I think last time, it also, one of the questions I had and I asked Jan about is that the last memo that KSCJ provided us had a few changes, and those conditions have to be satisfied as part of this.
Yes, they do, because they are part of the original satisfaction of any review memoranda from Keller Sessions is a condition of the original approval, which remains in effect.
Right. Okay, so with that, I'd look for a motion to approve the resolution as described by Jed.
I so move.
Okay,
I'll second it.
second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so delighted to see this continuing to move forward, and I hope this is one that now they can get going on, so, good. The next item on our agenda, we actually have two extension of time requests. The first is calendar number 03-13PB, calendar number 03-16WP, and calendar number 19-21SW. This is Silver Mine Preserve. This is at Silver Mine Drive and Lockwood Road, although I believe there's a new name for that. Sachem Way, right. It's a request for one 90-day extension of time to the resolution granting final subdivision plat approval, wetland activity, and stormwater permits. And this is for the construction of 13 single-family houses. So I know that, Judd, you had reviewed some of the
Yes.
documentation.
They are fulfilling the conditions necessary for sign-off on the plat. Two of those conditions were items that I was to review. One was the declaration for the open space piece, which has been provided. I've reviewed it. It passes muster with me. It just needs to be recorded with the plat when that gets filed. And the other is, you'll recall that they chose to bond some existing improvements. There was an estimate prepared by Joe and Kellogg Sessions. A letter of credit from Trustco Bank was provided. It's in sufficient form. I sent a memo, approved that, and that's actually been provided to the town comptroller. So those are satisfied. I think there are just some very minor cleanup items on this, and I also want to note that Jerry Tortorella did ask whether she needed to be here tonight, and I talked to Jan, I thought, given the fact that we know where we stand and in the progress that's been made, it wasn't necessary.
However, they do still want a 90-day extension. Their expiration date is May 12th, but that comes up very quickly.
Yeah, they weren't sure they were going to make the expiration date.
Right. So, and I should note, just for the tape, that Paul has joined us. Okay, so.
And Bruce will not.
Bruce will not be here. Okay, thank you. So that when you hear 4 voices instead of 3 on the recording, you understand what happened. Okay, so I'd look for a motion to approve this extension of time for 90 days, which I think takes us till August 12th.
I'll make a motion that we approve the extension of 90 days.
I second it.
And Charlene seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next item on our agenda similarly is another extension of time. It's calendar number 06-17PB, calendar number 43-23WP, calendar number 18-23SW. This is the Wolf Conservation Center, Buck Run, South of Salem, New York. And this is a request for 2 90-day extensions of time to the resolution granting the final subdivision plat approval. The current expiration date is May 14th, 2025. So, do you want to?
Yeah, so this is for the subdivision approval that was granted by the board. And that plat has been prepared, it's been signed by the county health department. It's just sort of a kind of a catch-22 because of internally at Lewis, with our approvals, the plat can't be signed until the the conditions attached to the special use permit and site plan have been satisfied, and those are being addressed. So the subdivision's there, they just need to work through satisfying the other conditions, and they've asked for 180 days to do so. And also, Janet Giris also contacted me about appearing, and I spoke with Jan and told her she has a conflict this evening, so.
Right, and I also feel like we know the situation and what's going on, and we'll and we don't. So I didn't think we needed to have her appear, and thank you, Judd, for explaining exactly the situation. So They asked for an extension of time, 2 90-day extensions, so I'd look for a motion to approve an extension of time till November 10th, 2025.
I so move.
I'll second it.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, the next item on our agenda is the site development plan review. This is calendar number 01-15PB, calendar number 25-15WP, calendar number 06-15SW. This is Copia Garden Center, 475 Smith Ridge Road, South Salem, New York. And this is application for reapproval of a site development plan for unfinished improvements to the existing Copia Garden Center. An expansion of, and when formally done, it had expansion of the existing use onto the adjacent tax parcel. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So do we have someone? Yeah. Hi.
My name is Simone Petromellis. I'm an attorney here representing Jen Cipriano and Peter. Jen is here. We brought our architect so he can speak more to the specifics. We are here for a reapproval, and I'm just hoping that if you have any questions, our architect, David Coffin, can answer them, and I'm here as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, my name is David Coffin, Sawmill Studio Architecture. And what you see over there is a site plan that had previously been approved. And the reason we're here for the reapproval is we ran out of time in order to complete the project. And I think at the time, there was a time frame with COVID, had really slowed things down. But at any rate, I provided the board members, all of you, with a narrative and really tried to give you an outline of all of the approvals, resolutions that you have provided, and all the reapprovals that we've come in for, and also all the memorandums that Keller Sessions had provided. So basically, to keep it short, I'm showing the blue portion on that site plan. That is the area where the work remains to be completed. And of course, we can't complete it without the planning board approval or reapproval, because in order to get a
Building
new
permit.
building permit. So at any rate, on that, there's a list of work requirements that remain, which is part of revision 11. And again, that's all noted in the narrative that I provided you with. So I think what's important here is the fact that Keller Sessions, Jan, has basically said that we didn't have to go through and present all of the drawings all over again. Also, we separated Lot 33, which is now zoned agriculture. We specifically took it out of this particular reapproval simply because we needed the reapproval again to get the building permit and complete the work. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them.
Great. Okay, so the just to clarify, the parcel number 33 or lot 33.
Yes. Okay, lot
It is
33.
Yeah.
right, is over here. And that is now zoned agriculture. And that's where Copia grows their plants and their trees
okay.
on that lot. They lease that lot.
Right. I just wanted to make sure it's not,
No activity.
not part of this.
It's not.
Right, okay. I think when we kind of think about this, for me, there's really three segments. There's sort of the nursery part, which is actually that whole thing, but the changes are in blue, right?
Well,
Or the
blue is
finished.
actually the work that remains to
Right,
be
the
done.
the finished work,
Yes.
and has to be done in the blue.
Correct.
The second is the question of the farmer's grind, because we did see the memo from the Department of Health. And the third question is, we've sort of put aside what happens with the agricultural parcel that's behind the Vista Market. So I think and what we're being asked here today is to really look at that first part, what I'll call the main site nursery, right?
Okay.
And I think that's what we've sort of talked about. As just to me, to get my handle on this, I know that for the farmer's grind, if in order to get a plan to the Department of Health and get them to approve it by early July, have you decided what's going to happen with that yet?
I don't know any of the specifics.
Yeah,
but maybe
so
you can-
we're working on that. We have different options that we're looking at. In the end, it may not work out, but I'm trying different avenues.
Okay.
Working with the state, I've been back and forth with the County of Health. So we're still looking at that, and that's why when we met with Jan and Kevin, we decided to do it piecemeal. So this is the part that's the reapproval. We have the backlot separate,
Right.
and we have farmer's grind separate. Farmer's grind by far is the most difficult part of this trio.
Yeah.
But I'm working really hard to try and come up with something. They're a young couple, they just had a baby. It's a beautiful place, I live right around the corner, we walk to it. It would be a shame to lose it. So we're trying to find a way where everybody's needs are met.
Okay, so what would your plan be as far as coming back? Once you kind of know what you're going to do, will you then come back to us with I don't know, we don't really have that on our site plan at all. There might be some, I don't know if there's some,
Isn't that a question for
I
Kevin?
think
Well-
what
They
we'd
have to-
like to do is actually keep all three of those totally separate
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm
and
hearing.
address
Can
each
do
one of them
that.
separately.
Clearly, the parcel behind the deli is ag, and we can discuss that.
Okay.
That's an easy one, in my opinion, at this point. There is some information we found in old records from the town, 1965, 67, that it was a food service location there for Farmer's Grind. It's kind of vague, okay, but it was food service, and it had a CO, which is
Okay.
interesting, okay? Is it continuous? Probably not, but there was a precedent at one point in time.
Okay.
I think the biggest picture with the health department is water quality. They passed all their inspections to date, but they're still asking for approximately $100,000 water system unless there's some options.
We're looking at
right.
options.
I mean, I know other places have done 4-log inactivation by just putting a 12-inch pipe and running it back and forth, and that gets adequate time. I'm not an engineer, I'm just saying, but
There are lots of things on the table.
there are lots of things that
Simone
could
and I have talked about it.
Okay.
You can't just import water, unfortunately, because you have to clean dishes
Right,
and
you have
things
to
like
keep
that. One option is an additional well further away that could potentially change the closeness to the septic, okay?
I don't think, okay,
Yeah,
it's
and
4-log
you could imagine-
inactivation
and
is
we've
time
talked to
of
the health
contact
department,
time,
you know,
yeah.
We all had a group meeting there. So the applicant is looking into every option we can possibly come in.
So
mean,
I gather,
The worst case, let me just finish up my
Yep.
thought, is, farmer's grind cease to happen. And, but I don't see any reason why we can't continue with the approvals of this, even if it has a condition in the approval, you know, that may have to cease, okay?
Yeah, so I gather from your saying that you looked in the records, you're trying to determine whether or not it's a change of use from retail to limited service?
Right,
Carryout?
right.
I think that why, and I'm sorry to interrupt, I think that why Jan, Kevin, and I felt that they should be done piecemeal is because the farmer's grind is a whole other topic. The back lot, I think, is an easier one, but we felt let's do this one that's a reapproval, finish this, and kind of compartmentalize and then go for the back lot while in conjunction I am jumping through hoops to try and find a solution
Right.
for this young family and for our neighborhood, quite frankly.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I know, I'm just trying to figure out, I want to be expeditious when it does get resolved. And so I'm kind of thinking through, how can we best make sure that if this does need to come back to us for review, we have an understanding of what's going on. And that's really the question, I think, is really to Kevin is this a change of use? Does it have to come to us for that, or is it kind of just, it's part of the site plan? And that's what I think I need to hear from.
In conjunction with the meeting we had with the health department and their staff, everybody was there. They couldn't find any records, okay, which is not shocking, but they couldn't find any records back in the history. So we actually found documentation from the health department, okay, saying this was a food service. And then we found CO. And as I said, it was in the latter part of the 60s, which kind of implies that they had a use there.
Right.
We have counsel here, continuous use, maybe not, but as far as I can tell, at one point in time, they had permission to have a food service.
So, but I think when we last approved it, it was retail. When it was last before us, I think it might have had a wine shop in it, or a...
I think it's morphed into things over the years. As I said, it may not be continuous,
Yeah,
but
I mean, I thought the last time it was before the board, it was for the apartment.
that was another submission, yes, for the apartment upstairs, which was approved,
Which
signed
remains,
off on.
right? The apartment
The apartment remains, right?
Right.
Yes.
But I'm looking for the applicant to tell us, because we're all saying yes, it does remain there, yep.
Yeah, no, I've inspected it because we had to do a fire inspection for it.
Okay,
I think that's why you can see where this is all, it gets a little messy, why I'd really love to do the reapproval so I can put that to bed and deal with the other two issues.
while you're here, I think it's helpful to have this discussion, though. Go ahead, Charlene.
It seems to me that it's somewhat of a segmentation, that you have a site plan and you have that 33 approved. And so I don't really see why we would have to not take the whole thing together, because I don't think that whatever Kevin decides has an effect on the health department. The health department has declared that you need whatever you need. The use is something different, you know, and I
Health
think,
department had two issues. Was there ever a change of use? And water quality.
right, okay. But what the health department, if there was no change of use, would they have a different result?
Could be. But right now, it appears that the health department in the 60s approved it.
They didn't yet have
And-
4-login activation. 4-login activation, so I helped
So would
run a...
grandfather in?
No, because we were a water system
Okay.
that I helped run, and they came to us with 4-login activation. We had to do changes to the water system.
Okay. So
it's a...
they would have an issue with the water quality?
Still water, correct.
So that can be decided by you, and we can put that in, having nothing to do with Westchester County, and put that in as subject to. And as to 33, I read the application to the agricultural district, and it was clear that it said it was to grow produce to sell at the nursery. So
Yes.
why can't that be in? I mean, it's very simple that you can take the three of them, and it would be really good that we could do it all together.
You know.
I mean, because
That-
segmentation doesn't seem the correct way to go.
If this board is ready to approve all three, I would join in that application.
I'm sorry, I can only listen to one at once, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, I understand that argument.
It's just an argument.
Right. I
So-
kind of like the argument, so if we're ready to
If we could
approve it
move,
all.
yeah. I don't know, so Kevin, so you're not ready to decide on the change of use on Farmer's Grind, whether it is or isn't?
Well, I think maybe we should forward the document to Judd,
I
because he has to
yeah,
see
I
it,
think
but
part
to
of
be
the question
fair.
is change of use is going to dictate, it's going to be driven by what does the current C of O say?
Yeah,
what's
well,
most-
the only CO that we can find, well, the health department had stated at the meeting that they had no records that there was ever a change of use, according to whatever.
Yeah, right, okay.
We have now found a health department document stating it had a change of use in the 60s, okay? Now, as I said, we can discuss, it hasn't been continuously that, but at one point in time, the health department gave it a change of use.
But what do you have it as? What does the town,
What is this-
not you
what's
personally, the town of
C
Lewisboro?
O say?
We'll have to go back now and look
Yeah,
again
yeah,
to
let's look at
see what it's listed as,
Right.
okay? But we were concerned that whether the health department would be a stop right there. I think they're satisfied that that document, for their purposes, at one point in time, they had given a change of use to it. They're not getting past the water until we find a solution.
That I understand.
for
Yeah,
that.
We got that.
And that's not
And
really
I'll
ours.
forward it to you. I'm thinking that this board potentially could approve this conditionally based on the health department for that segment of the business. And if at such time they don't get their approval, and it ceases and desists, and it goes back to being a nursery or whatever.
Okay,
Let
so,
me throw this out if I could. Let's say that all the work had been completed to date, and then Farmer's Grind came in and occupied the space. How would that be handled? Because I think that's the way we're
I think
trying to deal
I
with
think we'd be in the same place we are now, which is trying to determine whether
Yeah.
that occupancy by Farmer's Grind constitutes a change of use.
And-
what-
But it does it change the use of the nursery altogether?
no, so I think that the implication, so I
It's just
think
an
if it's a limited service if it's a limited service restaurant, depending upon how many seats it has, and that's another thing that Kevin would have to say,
At this
either,
point in time, it has none.
none,
They've been
okay.
removed.
So, did you want to say something, Jennifer?
I did want to interject a little bit, and it may help.
Can you just come up and state, just so the record knows who you are?
Hi, Jennifer Cipriano. So the garden center has evolved, and perhaps we could present a business plan to you that we put together a long time ago when we first moved, because our thought was to provide wonderful plants, teach people how to use those plants, make their environment better, but also we're in agriculture, and so what naturally started to evolve was Peter and I growing vegetables, selling those vegetables. We were told by the previous owner of the garden center that he sold local vegetables. He did very well with them, so we went with it. Then we brought in his uncle's homemade mozzarella, local Wave Hill bread. We started selling scones from a local woman in Pound Ridge. It started to naturally evolve. And then prior to Michelle and Eric, the Farmer's Grind, there was another friend and neighbor of ours who tried opening up this spin-off of fresh coffee, fresh produce, and so forth. and she couldn't make a go of it, and then Michelle and Eric came along. So in all of that time, Peter and I did a lot of homework, and those types of, I don't want to call it a restaurant or a cafe even, it doesn't have seating, it's an ag and markets use. Garden centers, nurseries, we are under ag and markets law, and so are those types of food establishments. And so all along, we were following the protocols of ag and markets. Michelle and Eric had been getting inspections from ag and markets. It wasn't until recently the Department of Health came in and said, wait a second, we think we have a water quality issue here. And she started testing and so forth. So I just wanted to clarify that. Hopefully it helps in some way.
Yeah, I think it really helps to understand
Yeah,
that this has evolved over time. And I will say that, you know, again, from my experience, the Department of Health coming in and asking for 4-log inactivation is not just you. It's water systems across Westchester County. So that's not, I don't think that's really been triggered by anything except the fact that you're a water system there. But so I think that helps also to understand, because I think if whether Kevin says this is a change of use or not, if it's limited service carry out, as I remember, with less than 10 seats, the parking calculations are exactly the same. So it doesn't change that. And that's the only thing that I could really see being a potential pitfall here. And it really helps to know that you don't have seats. So whether it's retail or whether it's limited service carry out,
Right.
it could be a change of use, it could be defined, but the site plan ramifications
Won't change.
aren't, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, aren't big. I mean, maybe you have to get a ACARC approval for a sign or something, beyond my knowledge there. But that would probably be it. But this really helps me to understand where we are. Now, the other thing on,
Just to add to that,
yes,
at that same meeting, AG has determined that they are lead agency for this, not health department.
they are what?
They are the
Lead
lead
ag.
there. It's definitely
Ag.
under AG, it's not under health department for inspections. So they qualify, it was like, what, 64% was prepackaged.
Correct.
So they are definitely.
They kind of dueled it out in
Yes,
front of us.
Yes, so that determination, so they clearly are falling under AG.
That's why I think it makes much more sense than doing the whole thing
That's why we're all here tonight to talk.
Right.
at once, because from what your agricultural, for the ag district, the application, you stated particularly that you were growing vegetables and
That's right.
what.
And we saw them to
So
Michelle and Eric.
that's,
And, yeah.
right, and so that would be included in, so it's sort of an amended site plan with the same issues going, with the same construction going on, except 33 would be used for agricultural uses, which is totally proper. And the farmer's grind seems to me, whether it be ag or Department of Health, their issue, and we can figure out something and put that in the resolution.
Yeah, we
As far as
can,
I see,
It's
it's the
subject
water.
to, but,
I'm sorry, what did you say?
As far as I can tell, it's the water at the end of the day.
yeah.
The water is
Jen and I
Yeah,
can
and
have
it's
a
not
sidebar
ours.
meeting.
operationally, but for us, it's,
So we can do a site plan approval conditional on.
well, then let's, so I think,
Or the farmer's grind, whatever,
Right.
if I'm screwing the name up, I apologize. We could do a site approval, but the food portion would be conditional upon water approval. But they can still do the site.
well, we don't have I don't think we ever got a site plan that had farmer's grind on it.
So then
It was
we're-
always sort of retail. And so if it's sort of retail, I mean, that's why I think I would like to hear from Kevin whether or not it's a change of use. I mean, I suspect that giving us something that says, here's the floor plan and there's no seats is not a huge ask. But
Yeah.
But that, I think, depends on you.
And I'd like to get some input from Judd, you know, if this municipality granted them food service there back in the 60s, you know, and it hasn't been continuous, do we have a hiccup or not?
Again, I would go to look, whatever the current C of O is what I would look, that's the standing authorization from the town as to the use of the property. I mean, should that have been amended from time to time if things were happening? Probably, but
Probably.
I'd like to see what that says.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and look at the CO. I don't even know if it delineates Farmer's Grind over the overall building. You know, they're all one structure.
Right.
You know, it's almost like a subsection of that same building.
Right.
You know, so the building has a CO.
So
Okay,
in that case, it
under the
would have
nursery.
been retail in that, and then you have to make a decision whether or not this is a change of use as far as the town of Lewisboro is
Right.
concerned. All right, the other question I have, and this was something that I guess maybe Jan and Judd and I talked about, was we had approved previously Lot 33 as basically a private garden for private use, or for personal use. So if that is again, it's up to you to decide. I think we want to be as expeditious as possible because of ag market, but is that a change of use? And does the ZBA special use permit apply to this? And if you say, yes, I think that makes it harder to do it right now because we obviously have to wait for the ZBA. If you say no, so go ahead.
Okay,
So-
just to put
Okay.
something in, from what I remember in the ag district, you can sell, if you grow stuff, you can sell it. So that would be
You're
the
correct.
same thing
Yep. And
there.
Right.
So it really wouldn't be a change of use.
And we've had
because it's-
conversations with ag directly, the head of
The
it.
lot 33 piece does not, provided it's being used for the cultivation of crops and associated
Plants and
Plants and
trees,
sale.
and basically what they do
Yeah.
is they bury these plants halfway so they can continue to grow.
Right.
And they water them, they cultivate them, and I don't see a change of use there, and ag feels that that's the case, that they complied with that piece. So I think the 33 is a really non-issue at the end of the day, and since ag is taking control of it, I really don't see how much say we even have at this
Right, so
point in time,
if you're willing
okay?
to send us a letter that's, I'm just trying to get this as through as possible.
Right.
If you send us a letter that said, I don't see 33 as a change of use,
Right.
and I don't think it needs to go to the ZBA, then could we fold that into this resolution?
Yeah, I think it'd be clean.
That way we would get that, I mean, I know that, I know I'm switching things a little bit on you, and Jan isn't here, but I would like to try to get as much as possible kind of settled. And I understand we've got the farmer's grind kind of hanging out, but it sounds like we could get a letter from you that says, Lot 33, not a change of use, doesn't need to go to the ZBA, and we could then fold that in.
Because although we don't have a lot of say over the use of it, we do have say over the site plan.
Right.
So that's why I
So,
think being
yeah.
included in it would make more
I
sense.
don't
and would,
disagree
you
that, I
know,
think we
would
can
be
easily
more viable.
layer that into the whole picture,
Yeah.
and not a problem.
Okay.
I would lean on you, Judd, you and I should have a
Yeah, we can
sidebar
talk
meeting, to
about
look at these
farmers' market.
documents.
Yeah, okay.
And is there a precedent, if it's been issued at one point, you know, do they lose all rights if it's cease and desist? And does,
If what cease and desist?
the business in the 60s.
Oh, if it stopped
Yes,
operating, okay, yeah.
Or do they still retain some standing in that? If the health department was good with it, are we good with it? I need your guidance on that,
We'll
okay?
talk about that.
And then, if that's the case, and I think I'm right on this, we can double check it, I don't think the building was delineated for different COs for different sections.
Okay.
So the building has a CO right now, and we would need to go through that to see whether or not
Right.
we need even a change of use or
Well,
not.
so it sounds like we can't tackle farmer's grind, right now.
And I think
But
that's why Simone's
And I
trying
want
to
to ask,
carve out
but I think we could do maybe 33 and
site plan.
the main thing. Do you guys
Yeah, I'm.
feel
that's
comfortable?
what-
That's okay?
That's what I was pushing for.
And maybe
Yeah.
with a carve-out for farmer's grind that indicates that in the event there's a determination as a change of use, they'll come back.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that,
I'm comfortable with that.
so what,
Yeah,
There is no doubt in my mind that they still would have to go back to get approval on signage, because they clearly never did that. It's a minor thing in the global
Yeah, it's-
picture, but, and we've all discussed that, but that's a minor, just to set the records
Right.
straight.
okay,
You should think, so if we were to approve it with this lot, 33, and Farmer's Grind, assuming, if there's a change of use, they'll come back. If there isn't, then it's accepted, that we're saying we're rolling it into one,
Into one.
Get it
so
done.
3, and then if it doesn't and needs a change of use, they come back for that.
The
Right.
good news is, as our chairperson has mentioned, there's no seating, so there should be no site plan calculation change anyway on
On the
parking.
parking.
So it's a moot point.
Right, as long as.
right,
it-
right.
as long
But I
as-
mean, but we want to have that accurately reflect what the applicant really wants to do. I mean, that's
Right.
right for everybody, right? So, what we need is to direct Jan, Joe and Jan, to write a resolution for next month's meeting.
Yep.
I guess I'm going to say it's clear that we're going to try to we're going to get a letter from Kevin that says, no change of use on lot 33, good to go, and we can definitely put that in.
And you may potentially have a letter saying no change of use on farmer's grind.
And,
Yeah,
right,
After you and I review.
right.
That's possible.
So,
Yeah, and it's
so
good to
I
put
think
that
I'm going to
in.
say, we are directing Jan to check with Judd and Kevin after they've discussed whether or not we can put some language in about farmer's grind as well. Or put something in that's,
We'll address it.
depends upon what happens or what doesn't, okay? So we all agree for that, that's by consensus, we
Yep.
send that direction.
Which would mean that
Great
we,
news.
Thank you, I am hoping, I am trying, we will see. Yes,
What I would have to do right now, lot 33 is not incorporated. It was actually removed as under one of the
Right.
amendments.
right.
The revisions. So what I can do is change this, update it, and then incorporate it.
Yeah, give us a revised plan.
Exactly.
And just in case, again, I don't know how much it is, but if you could sort of maybe give a floor plan for farmer's grind, in case that we can get that in, then we wouldn't, I don't know how much,
There's not much there. so
There's
yeah,
not- it's only a wall.
It's easy, it's a counter.
it's a
and back
counter, and if it doesn't have any seats, it doesn't have anything, sort of just kind of, if you could lay that out, it could be on a separate piece of paper, it doesn't have to be big, but, I mean, I think that would, in case we can get this through,
That would
is
be
this okay?
great.
I mean, I know I sounded like I was
Years.
interrogating you on what was going on, but I'm hoping maybe we can get this through.
What I can do, I can take this floor plan right here on the site
Yep,
and just simply designate farmer's grind right here.
Yeah, but I
Okay.
think they're looking for a little
An
interior
actual
layout.
floor
you know.
plan.
yeah,
Layouts.
like
Display
if there's
area,
a,
You got the
You really-
vegetable section, and.
what we want to
yeah.
show is you don't have 24 seats in there, we want to say, if you have something and it's clear you don't have tables and chairs, that makes it all easier.
Doesn't hurt to call the space out on the site plan.
I
No,
can do
that's
that.
what he just said he was going to do. So if you could do that. I think there's one more thing I just remembered that we have to do, and that is, I think we have to make a motion that the wetland permit associated with this has to be handled administratively as part of this. So I'd look, because there's a small wetland across the street. The wetland permit has expired as well, so, and I talked to Jan, and he's certainly willing to handle that administratively as we're going through all this, so look
I'll
for.
make a motion that we,
Well, can we, I'm sorry, John, before you do that.
go ahead.
Yeah.
If It was previously approved and they're not
and
changing the
it
site plan?
expired.
Yeah, but this is a wetland permit which expired. It's a separate expiration, and our code unfortunately says if we have a wetland permit that comes before us, we have to have a public hearing. So if we handle it administratively, we don't have to have a public hearing?
Perfect.
Okay.
No, that's what
I
It's a
just,
Gaming system.
okay.
I'll make a proposal that we.
A motion.
A motion that we handle the wetlands permit administratively.
I second.
Seconded by Paul. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we have a plan. We have some people who have to do a little more work. Judd and Kevin, thank you. But I will see you next month, and we'll see, and thank you, yes, you also have to do some work to get us this. But it's not, I hope it's not too much, and we'll get through it. Okay.
I really want to thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Next meeting date and deadline for submission?
The next meeting date is May 20th, and the submission is, oops, upside down. We're racing, who can say it first?
29th of April.
April 29th, yeah.
You have to have your paper in by then.
April 29th is the submission,
Oh,
and the meeting's May 20th.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Thank you all.
thank you very much.
Have a great night.
okay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is calendar number 01-25 PB. This is St. Paul's Parish, 313 Smith Ridge Road, South Salem, New York. Application for site development plan approval and special use permit related to the construction of a parish house and an existing church. Hi.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Matthew Gironda from Bibbo Associates, here on behalf of the applicant. As you stated, the property is located at,
Oops, I'm going to ask that conversation goes outside. Let's see. Okay, sorry.
the property is located at 313 Smith Ridge Road.
Right.
Just south of the intersection with Elmwood Road. It's currently developed and contains a church, existing church, which was built in the early 1900s, predating the town zoning code. We're here tonight for, as you mentioned, the proposed construction of a proposed dwelling, which will be occupied by the parish priest. They do have a newly tenured parish priest who will live in this house with his family.
Okay.
The church has been in continuous operation since it was built. Small congregation, typical operations of a church in the area. Very simple single-family home, been sited to comply with all the special use setbacks. Under the max allowable building coverage by quite a substantial amount. No zoning variances requested here. We're here for the special use permit application because this is an existing church in a single-family residential zone. Any further development on that necessitates the requirement for a special use permit.
Yeah, it's non-residential, right? So, so we did have a memo from Kellogg Sessions, KSCJ on this one. And I think one of the first things, that Kevin is out, but that he recommended is we refer to the building inspector. I don't believe there's any zoning concerns with this, but we have to do that, so we'll refer that to Kevin if I have consensus of the board to do that? Okay. Then, let me get through all this. Nope, this is still part of the last one. I think one of the things he's really recommended is an existing conditions survey and a tree survey. We have the ability to waive both of those, but I kind of feel like,
So, I'll let you
Go ahead.
finish, but, we have an existing condition survey, which is obviously, our site
Yep.
plan was
Okay.
based off that. One thing that's
With
not
topos.
located on there is trees. Now, I don't know if the board wants to schedule a site walk, but I think they would see what I'm about to describe. The majority of the site is wooded. And the majority of the trees in the area of development range between 6 and 14, 12 to 14 inches. Nothing of real significance, what I would call a specimen tree.
Okay.
Essentially, this entire area, the small grass area here, but there's a band of wooded, area of woods that surrounds the outer portions of the property, which will buffer this house from visual impacts from 123. Really, wherever we site this house on the property, we're going to have similar impact, I think, on the trees that are there. Again, it's mainly trees 6 to 12 inches in diameter. Now, if the planning board would like to walk it and view that themselves, I have no objection to that. But, we are working with the church, we are budget conscious on this.
Yeah.
So we're trying to minimize costs where we can. And the majority of the trees that would come down, like I said, are of that small diameter. There is quite a lot of trees in there that are actually already dead. There's a lot of ash trees in there that are dead or dying.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there will be a tremendous impact to existing trees, especially considering the large tract of woods that actually exist back through here. So there's quite a continuous tract of wooded area here that our development would have a small impact on. But that being said, we do have an existing condition survey with the location of the building, well, gravel parking area, property boundaries. It is missing trees.
Yeah, but I think the thing, one of the things that the memo said was something about 2-foot topos. Can you pull them on, or are
So
they?
we have 2-foot contours.
You do?
Is that GIS based?
It's GIS based. It's not field shot, but it's GIS. For a project of this scale,
Do you have anything that would kind of help support that? Any kind of limited topo or spot grades or something that would?
we're using the 2-foot contours available through GIS for the
Yeah.
beginning of this project. We don't have any field shot topo.
Okay. I don't know if it makes sense to maybe get some limited topo, at least for the house site. A lot of you saw our memo, a lot of the stuff was
Yeah, I mean,
pretty minuscule, but,
the grades on the site are pretty moderate.
Yeah.
yeah, we were just questioning the size of the house particularly, the elevations of it. It didn't seem to kind of tie in
Well,
as well as it may with the existing grades. I think you're actually filling to get the lower level.
So we were bringing the grade up about a foot on the lower level to have a gravity line to the septic area. The intention really was to set this house to minimize visual impacts from Route 123. So this is a ranch home, 10-foot elevation difference from first floor to lower level garage with a walkout on the basement level. So really what's visible is half of the first floor and the second floor above it from this view, and you would see the full
Yeah, I was trying to follow the building elevations and the grading that you have on the site. It looked like half of the, like you said, half of the lower level, and there's the windows, for instance, were below grade.
Well, so
How that front walk was going to work, I think it needed a little.
I mean, we can confirm that. Right now we're showing 5 foot from finished grade to first floor, so a 5-foot reveal in front of the house, which would cover those windows. We may have to drop that proposed grade by 6 inches a foot or something to get the reveal below those windows, but that is the intention. We can certainly demonstrate that with the 2-foot contours we have here, and the intention of what is proposed. Again,
Yeah, I guess being that it's, you're talking 5-6 inches, it's GIS topo we know isn't that accurate, so.
Understood. But there are also plenty of projects in Lewisboro homes that are built with GIS topo every day of the week. And we are budget conscious on this project. We're working with the church. They have a limited budget, so.
You just want it to work when you put a shovel in.
Understood. And it will. I have no concerns about that, and we can certainly firm up the architectural elevations. I know there were some comments in there about identifying building heights and architecture sign and seal on those elevations. Again, I think we can demonstrate the intent based on the 2-foot GIS topo we have. Ultimately, that's the board's decision,
Right.
but I do think there's enough information here to. to proceed with the construction of this project and also to demonstrate
Right. I mean, so I was just looking, the rear elevation doesn't have a basement walkout, which is what, I mean, but I think, well, okay. I think one of the things that the CAC mentioned also was that there are trails that are currently, I think, at least in the past, there have been trails that have gone across this property to access the sort of bigger parcel in the back.
So this parcel was formerly owned by the church, no longer owned by the church.
Right.
Any hiking trails that are on that parcel are no longer under the ownership or maintenance responsibility of the church. The church does have a walking path for their own use.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I want to use the term, what is it?
Stations of the Cross.
Stations of the Cross.
Okay.
But that's not accessed by the public, that's not for public use, that's for members of the church only on the property.
And so there's no crossing of your property to get to the, what used to be at least hiking trails on the back parcel?
No.
Okay. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I'm
Sally
Frank from CAC, and our concern, well, we just had several questions about other considerations for the site, because there is significant disturbance, and even though those may not be all specimen trees, it is an established forest, probably 50, 60 years old, something like that. It is a natural habitat, and it does create canopy, which is diminishing in Westchester County, and that's something we're very conscious of. So we try to minimize the impact to the environment wherever possible. So we had questions about whether there were other places where that had been considered. For instance, north of the church, there's a grassy area north of the church.
So we are actually limited in terms of where we can site this building relative to the front property line and also north of the church because it's a special use permit. So we're actually required to double the yard setback. We're adjoining a residential parcel. So that actual north of the church and this grassy area in here
Right.
is actually excluded by the front property setback for a special use permit. So we couldn't put the building here. We wouldn't be in compliance with zoning regs.
Okay. And could it not be moved closer to the road where there's less tree disturbance? I mean, I think it would just be helpful to have a plan that showed.
I think a site walk would demonstrate this to you.
Yeah, I think a site.
I think the woods are fairly consistent throughout.
Okay.
You know, whether the house was sited here or here, I think you're going to have a similar impact on trees. If the house was located closer towards the road, you would have more of a visual impact from Smith Ridge Road. Right now, we're proposing 160 feet from the front property line, and the majority of that area would remain undisturbed. So those existing trees would remain as a buffer from Smith Ridge Road.
And don't believe it's as densely forested as the back area. But the other thing that we would also want to see is a mitigation plan for the soil disturbance and for the, for the planting, with plantings.
So when you say mitigation plan, is that with tree replacement? Is that
Yes.
because we have stormwater mitigation now for the proposed impervious surfaces?
Sorry, yeah, I'm sorry?
We have proposed stormwater mitigation for the runoff from the proposed.
Right, no,
impervious
this is
surface?
mitigation for the removal of all the trees.
And is that typical of all applications, tree removal? We have to provide mitigation tree replacement plans for that?
Okay, so I'm
don't
going to
believe so.
back up just a little bit and say, we've had at least one suggestion of a site walk. Do you guys have any desire to go on a site walk on this?
I'll go if you want to go. I know the property, so
Right.
you want to go?
Yeah, I'd go. I think it'd be good to see why this location was selected. It seems like.
Yeah, so,
Again, the location was selected so we could have a first floor with a lower elevation, a garage below, and allow for a future walkout in the back.
right.
So we were trying to take advantage of that elevation change.
Yeah, no, but I think it would also inform us about the trees and the situation. I do think, I understand that there's some advantage to having a walkout. It actually gives you more, daylight space in a somewhat constrained, if you can use the basement with daylight and walkout and stuff compared to the top. Okay, so.
I think it also, not to speak for the church, I think their goal is to use that space and keep the overall cost of the building down by
Right,
using the sub.
by making it more
substructure
useful.
radar, right, just to average cost so they can have the space and
Yeah.
Yes,
not break
it
the
it
budget.
also allows for a nice usable rear yard. Actually, the area where this septic is light, is, I would say, lightly wooded relative to the rest of the.
It's lightly,
Lightly wooded
okay,
relative to the area where the house is.
okay.
But, this is a flat area of the site where you could walk out and have a nice rear yard.
Okay, so typically we go on site walks the Saturday before the meeting, so the next one would be the 17th. Are people available for that date? And
Yes.
9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock, what works?
I'm good with either one.
All right, 9 o'clock on May 17th, that's okay with you? And just, if you could, I know it might be hard to formally stake it, but give us an idea where the house is going to be
Sure.
from that. Okay, so now mitigation. Typically when we talk about mitigation, we talk about wetland mitigation if you're disturbing a wetland. Elements of the tree code, don't typically apply here because if you're coming in for a plan, we don't make you get a separate tree permit. We do it as part of the site plan review. So typically, there hasn't been, I think what we've made sure is that the stormwater kind of is in place. And sometimes if that has included any kind of, I don't know, rain garden or something, we might have asked in the past about trying to put some trees around that or screening or something. I don't think we've typically asked about that. But I think if we go out on a site walk and we say, it might help to have a couple trees here to screen from the road or something that you might want to do anyway, we could work that in. So typically we don't do, I don't think we typically say we want trees, because you took trees down, we want trees planted. We sort of say, does it fit into the site plan? I can think of a couple, like
How about Chapel Road?
Chapel Road. Walkabout Country Club, I know we
No,
did.
not the, but that as well.
Yeah, that one we.
Chapel Road, not 72, the other one, which is like.
Yeah,
it
that was residential. I'm trying to go to more, what do we do with non-residential?
Yeah, it was residential, but they had to replace the trees that they took down.
Right, so so what I would say is when we do the site walk, we can kind of look and see, and maybe there would be, for Walkabout Country Club, it was very clearly a part of the view shed that would really help to have replaced trees to, and to try to help with the erosion and the overall setting. We don't have steep slopes here, so I think.
That's not a good comparison.
No, it's not really. So I think.
We are preserving quite a large vegetative buffer around
Right.
the perimeter of the site.
Yeah, I
Right.
think we need to see that
I
because I
think-
think that's
So planting trees,
justified.
to be honest with you, I'm not so sure how much it would really enhance the situation.
That's
or
why I
how well
think-
they would really even do, considering the competition from all the existing trees that are already there. that we
It could
plan to
be,
preserve.
it could be taking out invasives or something like
Yeah,
that too.
it could be, sometimes it's taking out invasives.
Right, I mean, I think it'll help if we see it, and I also understand that you guys are looking to do things,
Would it be beneficial
frugally, yes.
for Matt to try to tag approximately the trees that he thinks have to be removed, since that seems to be a sensitive, put the corners of the building?
Go paint the trees.
And roughly the trees you think, so they can do a visual to understand.
Well, I think if we have the corners of the building, you know that there's going to be some activity in the perimeter around it.
Just a suggestion.
I understand.
And also water, and also the septic system.
Sure, we can
They have
stick
to
to.
come out.
The septic system,
Could that be moved to a less,
He just said it's like-
It's actually, the septic
That's
system
in the
actually
flat.
is,
That's where they're going to disturb anyway, so.
There's, I would say, less concentration of trees where the septic area is proposed in other parts of the site.
Right. Are you planning to clear both the septic system and the expansion area, or just
the
the?
primary area.
Okay,
We would leave the expansion area alone.
right.
We don't want to take down any more trees than we have.
I know, that's also costly. Yeah, okay. So,
And, it's important for the church to also maintain, they do
Right.
enjoy the Stations of the Cross, and they enjoy the
Right.
forested area, so
Well,
there's no
and-
intention to come in here and clear cut.
right. And it's nice for both the church and the family that's going to be there to have a wooded setting. I understand. I mean, I know you're not trying to do much. So I know there's some questions about the elevations that we've been given, but we should send this, I believe, to ACARC, but I don't know whether the elevations are going to change a little based on some of the comments. I mean, I don't see a basement walkout on the elevation I looked at, unless I'm looking at it wrong, but at some point that I think has to go to ACARC though, right?
May 14th, we meet again.
What's the submission deadline for the May 14th meeting?
We are asking that, we happen to have the expert on ACARC in the room,
April 28th.
April
April 28th.
20th.
For the May 14th meeting, and that would just be a submission of the architectural elevations for them to review?
I can send you the application, or you can find it online.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we'll have the site walk, we'll report back. You have comments from our KSCJ's consulting's memo that you have to address. We'll see you next
Well,
month.
Are we all okay with doing the site walk instead of requesting the trees for the survey? Because just if we request it at the site walk, that's a month off for them, so. Make that decision now so they're not,
You want a tree survey?
yeah.
I hate to put them through the cost of that when that site, that whole area is
Yeah.
pretty wooded,
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary.
I'm not sure what it
Just wanna make that
serves.
I tend to agree.
Okay, but let me get one more vote here. What do you feel?
If they mark the trees that they're taking down, I would be satisfied.
Well, they're going to mark the general areas that we will know, the
Yeah.
corners of the house, we can
Right.
assume.
We can assume. Do you want the trees
I
marked? or
want the
just-
trees marked.
Sure.
Yeah, I would like the trees marked. I mean,
Is that doable?
That's doable for me. So the board's
No tree
accepting of
survey,
us
no tree
marking the
survey.
trees and
yeah.
And no survey?
no tree survey.
Good.
That's a trade-off, but
It's
it's
a
a
victory for me
cheaper,
tonight.
it's a cheaper trade-off, right? Okay.
Except we want it in a certain color.
You tell me what color you want.
No, I
I'll
think,
get my kids out there, we can do multiple colors, they're very artistic. They are.
okay. Is there anything else? I'm trying to quickly look at
There's just a lot of little things from Joe and Jan about little comments, but
Yeah,
nothing
our office wasn't
substantial,
anything big.
nothing.
Nothing crazy. We talked about the grading and the house.
right.
And just
I
to-
think that's,
Stormwater system
Also,
and
just to
size.
fill the board in, we've, sorry to interrupt you, I apologize. We've submitted to the health department for our septic and well permit, and we received back some very minor comments. We resubmitted back to them, I want to say last week, in response to their comments. So I'm expecting approval on the septic and well from the Department of Health in the next couple of weeks. Just to fill the void on that, that was one of the comments that we would have to proceed with approvals from their department.
Sure.
We're
Right.
already going down that path.
okay. And the well is that thing in the middle of the circle right to the left, right?
So this is the proposed well. There is an
Yep.
existing well now that serves the church.
Yep,
This will be a totally standalone building with its own well and septic.
And there was
Okay.
no, I mean, probably disturbance-wise doesn't matter, but to connect to the existing well.
Sure.
no.
That brings into play some issues with our friends at the health department that we'd rather not discuss.
You
So,
become a
100-year-old well.
community,
You guys just discussed some of them about Ecopia Nursery.
Right.
right, you become a community water system and
Yeah.
you don't want that, so,
And again, this house is strictly for the parish priest and his family.
right. And
The church itself, is a very small congregation. There's no school or
Right.
anything associated with it.
And I think the other thing, just to sort of remind you, that I think the memo said is in order for us to do a special, to raise, basically give the special use permit, if you could just sort of identify, go through
Yes.
the, and say, this is why it applies, or this is
Right,
how
so,
we.
so per that section of the code, I did review it, and I believe we meet all the conditions.
Perfect.
We front on a main road, we satisfy the increased setback distances, so we can certainly put together a point-by-point response on
That would be,
why we fit into all
Right.
those boxes.
that would really help. Okay, great. Thank you.
I guess, I know we have a site walk scheduled, but being that this is a special use, we obviously have to have a public hearing, right? This is a special use permit?
For special permit, yes.
I think we do.
So is it premature to schedule that public hearing?
Why?
I'm just trying, I mean,
Why not?
yeah, I mean, if the house moves, it's probably not going to move far, and you guys want it there, so,
We would prefer in that
right,
location.
right. So,
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Should move.
okay.
Public
Judd, any
hearing.
reason not to?
No
Yeah.
reason.
We can always open it, and
Right,
if
keep it open.
if we have some concerns, we leave it open.
Okay.
Okay,
So the next meeting,
May 20th,
May 20th, submission deadline is
April 29th.
April 29th.
We'd have
And-
to get the public hearing notices out by May 5th.
Understood. I think we can make that happen.
And you work with Kirsten to, as you know, to get the addresses and everything, the notice that has to get submitted.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anything
So-
else? That was good. All right, anything,
Thank you
oh,
all, I appreciate your time.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is calendar number 08-25WP. This is the Freiburg residence at 110 Mill River Road in South Salem, New York, and it's an application for pond restoration.
Good evening. My name is Gene Nazar, and with Nazar Incorporated, we've been contracted for a pond restoration by Alexandra Freiburg. Pond is located, about 11-acre parcel. This is the existing pond now. The Mill River flows from the north to the south. And the objective is to restore the pond to its original depth and shape, not to enlarge it or to change the embankments at all. The equipment access from Mill River Road will come around, there's a shed over here, come around into the property. It's a mechanical dredging, which means that we will dewater the work area and do our work within the pond. Now, in order to isolate the work area, put in 2 temporary coffer dams, just to prevent the water from flowing in and flowing out, having the water backing into the property itself. The material is proposed to stay on site. There's a former tennis court area in here, which is primarily a grassed over area. So it'd be very difficult to even tell it's a tennis court other than the fact that it's a level area. Our equipment access will come into one source of the pond, one entry point into the pond. The equipment, first of all, our access into the pond, we use composite mats for stabilization of the ground. They're 8 feet wide, 14 feet long, 4.5 inches thick. They all bolt together, so everything is stable, nothing moves from the property. The impact on the ground is minimal. We've just done numerous country club ponds this winter, 11 of them, and all the fairways and such are perfect. In fact, we're just wrapping up one at Wingfoot right now. The idea is to water the pond. Once you isolate that, set up some pumps within the pond through a sediment dirt bag. And when we set up our dirt bags, they're typically 10, it's called, the brand name is dirt bag, which is 70 sag. Typically 10 feet by 15 feet in diameter. We place them, the trick is to make them, keep them level. If not, all your water and sediment runs to one end and wants to burst. So we keep them level. We have different methods of keeping them level. We put the dirt bags in place and we stake hay bales around it. Below the hay bales, we put road stabilization fabric, so there's no scouring below any turbidity coming out of that. The pond itself is not a difficult pond for us to do. The equipment used would be an excavator, hydraulic excavator, with 50 feet of reach. We typically come into the pond, we have one access point into it. Everything is matted for any truck activity. The truck itself is an off-road articulated dump truck. So it's not trying to use a road-worthy truck to make that work. We have one access point into it. Typically, we start the job, first thing we want to do is set up our ENS around that. Here we have
Is to, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
erosion sediment control.
yeah,
silt fence.
ENS, all right.
Now, Jan suggested, which is a very good point, to extend the silt fence to the southern direction, more for the spoil area itself. A double row of DOT rated silt fence with a straw wattle. Straw wattles are 9 inches in diameter, 25 feet long, staked in place.
Okay.
So access point, you start a job like this, everything is set up. The biggest thing is water management. Any of these jobs, if you have to control the water. And with the coffer dams, we can do that. Once everything is in place, begin your activity right here. And on the bottom of this pond is all riverbed. We've done jobs where there's peat bogs or bottomless, very unstable. This is all riverbed. And it's primarily just sand that's coming there from the river. So it's really not a real sloppy.
So sand
So-
underneath and then the accumulated
Yeah, there's
debris
a lot
and
of
stuff
debris
up?
in that. Right now you have phragmites and such, just vegetation growing in there, wild. And the water itself is like 12 to 18 inches deep. Some places there is no water. So that's really the activity in here. We have one source point coming in. The equipment itself is a track excavator, 50 feet of reach, maybe 60 feet, depends on which one we use. They work off of timber mats. We place timber mats that are 14 feet long, 4 feet wide, 8 inches thick of bolted together wooden timber.
4 feet wide.
4 feet wide, this one.
So, yeah, but I mean, is the excavator is wider than that,
No,
right?
that's 4 feet.
No,
This
they're
way
small.
by
They're
14
minis.
feet.
Okay.
4 by 14.
So stacking four.
And you stack, we
Ah,
stack them
stack 'em as you
together.
go. Got
And
it.
if we
Okay.
have to, coming into it, the embankment, we'll stack up more to ease
Right.
the machine coming in.
Got it.
So the
Okay.
machine is never sitting in water. Our hydraulic fluids have been removed, and we use vegetable oil base in our equipment. They're in ponds.
Okay, when I first,
Okay?
I did not understand this at all because I was thinking you were basically dredging by pumping stuff into the dewatering bags, and those are not big enough. But it sounds like you're
No,
not
we
doing
don't
that. You're
use-
taking,
That's suction dredging, that's another method.
okay, but
This
you're,
is hydraulic.
so you're
Okay.
actually using equipment to, you're not pumping everything. Because I was
Correct.
going, how are you going to get
No. That's a-
900 cubic
Yard.
yards through these little things on the corners? Okay, so you've explained confusion point number 1 to me. Now, how do you get the stuff? So you now have all the stuff with silt fence and straw wattle there, and then you have the equipment is on the pond side of it?
That's correct.
And then you reach with that back over the stuff to the, how do you get now that you're not putting it in a dirt bag,
Right.
how are you getting it to the other side of the fence?
Fence?
It's going to
Silt
the-
fence.
it's
Oh,
going to
no,
the truck.
well, right in here we'll have an opening, so truck can pass through there.
So you have a truck going back and forth through
That's
that?
correct, working on composite mats.
Right, on the mats. Okay, well, this is just me trying
No,
to
this is all
figure out
good.
what you're
These are all
doing.
good questions.
Okay,
And then the spoil area is prepared. What we do is we'll take, it's an old hard true base. If there's any material that's in here, that will get mixed in with the sand. Typically, we build a berm with the natural material that's there. So you have a containment berm with the natural soils that are there. The spoils are dumped within that. Spoils take time to shrink and dry. When they do dry, they'll go down anywhere from 10 inches to 1.5 feet. Once that's completely dried out, then that envelope is then closed over again with material that was taken to build that berm. So you're taking out, building, like you say, 4-foot high berm, dumping the material in that so it doesn't just migrate everywhere in the property. Contain that, allow that to dry, and come back and close the envelope and then seed it.
and amount of time that will take?
This job itself,
I mean, with the drying out and everything?
okay, the actual job itself will probably take 2 weeks
Okay,
at the most. And the actual drying depends on Mother Nature, because you have a surface now that's flat, and as long as it doesn't pond out, that'll dry. The good thing is, it's really sandy material, so it's quickly drying. It's not like we've been in areas where it's just really dense mud, and it takes a long time to dry out.
because I don't know, I mean, it's on the way into Richfield, there had been a pond that was dredged, and they had this ginormous dirt bag that was probably,
I know the job.
okay, and it was there for like 2 years, and that's why I'm kind of trying to.
No, that's,
All right, it was
That's a
there for a
real
year.
downside to it.
What it was?
it's just very much of a downside, leaving
Yeah.
something there for so long.
Yeah. Okay, so, okay, so it depends on how long that's there, but so you leave the silt fence and up
Absolutely, until
for that?
everything is germinated.
Okay,
It has to be maintained
yeah,
throughout the project, the duration. In fact, before if anything goes down, we have to replace it or repair it.
so now we've got the Mill River that goes on the left side if we're
right
looking
here,
at this,
yep.
right? And you put in cofferdams.
Right here,
And all of a sudden, you now have something that used to be all sort of weedy and shallow, and it's now much deeper. Is the water path after the dredging going to be all the way through there, and
Yes,
it won't go down the old Mill River?
it'll come back in. Once you open this up,
Yes.
it'll return back in.
Is that going to grab the major Mill River? I mean, is there going to be still anything running down the left side?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're not touching anything within the Mill River.
Yeah, but
Just
now
the-
it's going to be so,
They'll both seek the same elevation.
Yeah,
just-
it- once
right,
it
but
fills-
it's just
once
so
it
much
fills
easier
up,
for the
it's just
flow to
gonna flow
come
out.
through the,
Right now, to be honest with you, there's a really large delta that's built up in the Mill River itself right now. Most of the water is, I would say most of it, 40% of it maybe is entering into the pond, the rest continues down Mill River.
when I looked at the aerials, it looked like the real Mill River, not the pond, was pretty sedimented and
it
filled
is.
up. And I was just kind of, okay, you're basically going to capture the Mill River going through the pond.
That's it. Just prevent it from flowing through the work area, the duration of the project,
Okay.
then removing that.
So it might all, but that's
I mean,
just,
the ideal thing would be, in my estimation, if you could achieve, right now, this bank has been scoured out
Mm-hmm.
over the years, and whoever the previous people had put rocks or boulders in this area, just to keep that from scouring, undermining. When this pond was built, in my estimation, this island was built with the materials that came from the pond, as well as down in this area.
Okay.
In here. This was all elevated from the spoils that came from the pond, as well as the house site.
and what are you going to, what happens, so you said there's phragmites and stuff growing there, what do you do with the vegetation?
Bury it.
So it goes into the pile and
That's correct. Right at the base.
that's
And
part
when-
of,
and
that's
when-
part of why that sinks over time.
That's correct. And it's nothing dramatic. We
No,
just
no,
did
it
one
just-
in Ridgefield.
It compacts.
And it's this past fall, and it's settled maybe a foot. And you go back in the springtime now and regrade it and reestablish it. Now, in a job like this, when I say original depth and shape, when you're taking out the sediment, you're going to find the original bottom, whether it's mud or sand. Get down to the original bottom, that's it.
You're
We're
done.
not trying to make this 8 feet deep or increase
Okay.
the original volume of the pond.
No. Okay, so one of the things that, that I think the memo said was we referred to Kevin to see if it needs a floodplain permit, which
Take a look.
I
Yeah,
think,
I think the majority of the properties in the Zone A.
so it's likely, but you're the one who makes that determination?
We will consult with your office also.
Okay. You have, I think another thing in the memo was finding out if DEC has any,
I filed an application with them, as well as freshwater,
okay,
and I've got copies of that with me.
okay, good. And here is one place where I think we we would like to see some mitigation. Actually, that reminded me, in the letter, I think you mentioned Schloss was an owner, is that?
I'm not really sure. I mean, right now on the record, it's Freiburg.
Uh-huh,
Now, I don't know Schloss is or where that came up.
okay,
on the property. I think that was titled wrong by Environmental Land Solutions.
yeah, okay. But,
I do have a copy of the deed. with
right,
the-
right.
Confirm the ownership of it.
If the applicants are willing, I think this is a place where some, you don't want the pond to fill in again, you don't want Phragmites to come back. So if you have some kind of plantings, shrubbery,
Well, I think what they should have is at least a no-mow area,
right?
a 10 to 15-foot buffer around that as a mitigation buffer. Let that come back to natural and let it be. One point I wanted to make, if typically in a pond like this, I will build a forebay in here to trap the sediment before it enters the pond.
Yeah, I was going to say, otherwise it's going to fill.
It's a little difficult in this particular area to establish an effective one, in my estimation. If possible, I would, but I don't think it's going to be, the ponds can become the catch basin once again. How many years will last? Who knows? It hasn't been a zillion years since it's been touched before.
And cleaning out that forebay after you have all this in there, getting equipment in there,
A forebay is
depending
very
on,
small piece of equipment, needs to maintain that. And you do have access to it from this point right here.
Okay.
You could actually clean that out. And how often do
The
you
problem
clean
is
that?
with the flow from that river, you'll be in there.
I think you're battling it. And normally I would say,
Like you said, that pond is really acting as the
Catch
forebay.
basin.
that is,
Which is why it's.
it's unfortunate, but that's really what the deal is.
right. Okay, yeah, but I think there's, so I know you did say a no-mow zone. Could you show us where that,
I would say that this area in here is really pretty much vegetated. I'd put myself, I would have a no-mow zone in here, in front of the house, in this residence in here. And allow it so that you don't have leaf clippings and such being blown into the water. That's the biggest problem, is when
Right.
people come in and just leaf blow everything into a pond,
right,
glass clipping,
right.
trimmings, and fertilizers and pesticides. There's your problem.
And you have geese coming up from, so if you have
That's the
some,
problem. Then you heat up the temperature of the water, and now you're having algae blooms.
Right.
And creating all this beautiful vegetation.
right.
Start coming back.
So I would like to see some kind of mitigation, I mean, of some plantings, maybe something a little bit more than just a no-mow, if possible.
You can see some,
Well, why isn't this falling under the ratio that's required for a wetlands permit?
I think it does. I mean,
Yeah, so
that's what I'm
we would
saying.
have
We
to do-
need some
is it-
more,
Right, it's 1-to-1,
right,
so.
and it can certainly provide you with a planting plan.
Perfect.
But just not at the liberty right now to spend the client's money and say, oh yeah, agree to everything. I'd be glad to, I'm
Yeah.
in favor of it personally.
right,
And
right.
the DEC will likely be looking for that as well.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's the right thing to do. But I think the biggest thing is at least have a no-mow zone around here, 10 to 15-foot buffer. That's very important. Now,
Yeah,
how
I
is
mean,
that
that's kind of minimal,
enforced?
because, and we can have some kind of monument stones or something, but, I mean, I think even New York State has a no fertilize within 20 feet of the of a
I don't know
waterway.
the answer to that, but it seems
Yeah.
reasonable.
So you want something that really, I mean, the no-mow zone might be a
Something more
little,
robust than just.
right,
a
but I'm
no-mow.
also saying some other stuff.
Yeah,
Hi,
I
Sally.
think just to elaborate on what I think you're getting at is I think when you plant some native shrubs, it helps to delineate that
Agreed.
no-mow zone. It sort of enforces it without,
I agree.
oops, they just mowed the,
Right, right up to the edge, exactly.
so I
And
think the native
there's
shrubs
a
are-
demarcation
Right.
of that.
Right, so I think a planting plan would be useful. And so as Paul mentioned, we usually look for one-to-one mitigation. I'm not quite sure how to define.
Explain one-to-one to me, I don't.
Right, so what we typically say is if you disturb a square foot of of wetland or wetland buffer. We're looking for a square foot of
In exchange.
mitigation of
Got it.
something. Now,
Okay.
sometimes that's removing invasives, so you can tell me that, oh, we're taking Phragmites out, so that counts even though it's the same, I'm taking Phragmites out of
Some
this.
frags, and there's really actually more cattails than frags in there.
Yeah.
Which to me, a little
Cat-
bit easier to manage.
Well, cattails, so I know there's some native and there's some invasive, and I don't know what you have.
And
Okay,
I really don't know where it all originated
Right.
from and migrated.
right. So, but I think we would like to see, because this is not shown on here, what exactly 150 feet is, but I suspect that a lot of even the fill is going in within 150 feet of the wetland,
I do
so,
have a wetlands flagging that was done. I have a map of that here.
good, was that submitted? I don't remember, maybe it was. But do we have any, since we're already doing a site walk, do you feel any need to, I think this is pretty simple, it's not like,
I had a couple questions. The survey that has the wetlands flagging on it has a property line running like through the old tennis court. Is it two adjoining properties? Is it?
yeah, they do own two different properties. I went out and looked at the parcel map, and as I remember, where's the flag?
Somewhere in here, I can buried.
Yeah, so right there at the top, you can see they have a,
This is their
so now they're,
state line, it's your property. This is all within the property. This line here is what you're referring to?
No, the one that goes,
right north, right through the old tennis court, right in the middle of
the
those two,
horizontal
that
one
line.
that goes. But I think
This is all
that,
their property, it is all one parcel. It may have been two different parcels identified on a tax map,
Right.
but it's actually 11.1 acres, I believe.
The survey that they're using has similar to the other application. This is Westchester County GIS for it. And for this application, because the amount of grading and the scale of the fill, I don't think Keller Session mentioned, I don't know if you felt you wanted 2-foot contours on this. This I could see being more useful to have, but
I don't know, Joe, what do you think?
Well, the dredge area is what it is. I'd be more concerned with the
Yeah.
placement of the fill.
Yeah, exactly.
Which gets to my comment about the floodplain mitigation, right? And whether or not a floodplain fund is required would determine whether or not we need to compensate for that fill. So, it may make sense in that regard. Maybe just a limited top bottom.
yeah.
You're not talking about like a bathymetric survey or something like
No,
that.
no, just to, yeah,
Just for the
exactly.
fill area.
Yeah, no, not the
Yeah.
pond, because they're gonna destroy it.
It's going to change it, yeah. But
In the next way, right? But yeah, from like the house north of where you're, basically your disturbed area, so we get a sense of it.
Right, and the house elevation you have on, right up in here.
And full disclosure, we've never met, but
We worked
I
together.
did the design for the Wingfoot dredge that he referenced earlier. So I've been working with Ross.
Ross is my son.
Your son? How come he doesn't get tied into these meetings?
Because he's waiting on his fourth child right now. Next week.
And I have to say, I was actually just at the site today, and they've done phenomenal work there. We added 1 million gallons of storage to an irrigation pond. And
Not here, at a different place. I'm sorry.
At the Wingfoot Country Club.
Yeah.
And Kevin was actually just looking at some aerials of it.
Pretty cool.
You go there today, you never know they were there, and they were only there maybe 2 months.
Mhm.
So top-notch operation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Family business,
What
80
that's
years.
So I think the comment letter said something about the no-mow zone was going to be where you're going to put the fill, but
No, I think the no-mow zone, she needs to be down. My estimation, I would keep it in this area in here.
Right.
This is
So-
primary activity in here, and, well, Joe, you saw the maps we used at
Yeah.
Wingfoot.
Yeah,
Zero disturbance.
and, the trucks are the size of your living room, and they're driving them over the West Course, Championship Course at Fairway at Wingfoot, and you never know it, so.
okay. So Yeah, so the calculation of the 1-to-1, I think, would be helpful. Do you have any, I'm sort of, oh, go ahead.
I just have one question.
Sure.
You indicated in the write-up or somewhere that there were 2 trees to be removed?
Right.
But I didn't see them
Well, the
marked.
2 trees may not even have to be removed. The 2 trees I suggested to the owner is for the access for the equipment coming in over here,
Oh, okay.
right off of the road. And they're wonderful, like 10-inch cherry, you know, there's nothing, wild cherry, nothing really significant as far as that goes. And if we can relieve them,
Yeah.
we'll leave them.
Okay,
There's no
just
need.
wondered.
It's just a matter of scooting the equipment by.
Okay.
So when I looked at the aerial, there was a tree sort of close to the house.
It's over in here.
That's not going to be, okay,
No,
that's
no.
nice.
In fact, one of them was a willow tree that was really compromised, and the owner took it down. It's in the uplands area, though.
Okay. All right. So on this, I think what we have is a few questions that, you know, need to be answered, but to me, it seems like a good approach. I think if we get a mitigation planting plan,
Sure.
I think that's really the big
Okay.
thing here.
And I'll have ELS come up with a site plan and list the plants that we.
That would be great. Anything else from anybody else
Would
here?
you like to do a site walk? Is that necessary, or?
I think
I
we're
don't
all
think
kind
so.
of feeling,
Okay, I just,
maybe we'll take a site walk to the golf course? Oh, never mind. Okay,
it's a pretty nice one.
and we referred this to Kevin. I think, I'm trying to remember if there was anything else in the memo. I think that's kind of it, right?
Yeah, unless you want to, we can wait until Kevin's determination on floodplain. Do you want topo or do you want topo for the application? I personally would lean towards wanting it. It's a lot of soil movement, but.
I think that has to be,
Yeah, I think it would help. To do that calculation, I think it would be useful.
okay.
And again, just a limited topo of that proposed area. And then any feedback as you get it from the DEC, obviously, you know,
Right.
we want to see that.
This is applied for, well, Jan said, we can jump ahead of it.
Right.
You don't have to do it.
Oh, yeah.
You
no,
have to wait your
absolutely.
turn,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
come here first and have the process going
But
on.
as you receive anything, just make sure the board gets it.
Absolutely.
And then the only other comment that we had was regarding the stormwater permit, the DEC stormwater permit. So I don't know what your overall disturbance area is, but if you exceed an acre,
You know, I did the
Here.
quick calculations before. The pond is like 18,400 square feet,
okay?
and our spoil area is like right around 20, I came up with roughly 30,000 square feet total
Yeah.
disturbance,
Okay.
which will put you under
Under an
the
acre.
threshold
Yeah,
of the.
just take a
acreage.
look. If you
Just
do trigger
confirm
the
that.
acre, it's not earth shattering, there's no stormwater improvements that are required. It's just a basic SWIP, erosion sediment control plan, which you're going to have prepared as part of the application anyway. So it's really just filing a notice of intent with the state. So if you think you're gonna be at an acre and you're trying to fight it and stay at that .9999,
Right.
just
Why back?
say it's an acre and.
Right,
and
exactly,
file it.
be
Yeah.
realistic.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So where do we go from here?
Okay, so I think, yeah, I think if,
Where do I go from here?
where do you go? So I think you've heard that our next meeting is May 20th. If we were to, if you could get a mitigation plan to us and perhaps the topo by, I think we said it's April 29th,
Okay.
then we could discuss, what?
May 29th?
No, the meeting is May 20th, so
Oh,
the submission date would be April 29th. And so, which isn't really a heck of a lot of time, I know, but
No,
that would,
that's okay.
that would help, and we could review this at the next meeting.
Because right now, the house is about at 550 elevation,
Okay,
and the pond banks at 524. So it's a 6-foot transition to that. And that's basically, it's a pretty flat area, especially the former tennis court areas.
Yeah, but there's sort of a hill down to that, and I will let you guys do it.
Do you want me to provide you spot elevations? How do you,
What,
what would you like to have?
I think Joe
Only
thinks,
if they're gonna be out there doing spot elevations, you might as
I
well.
mean, what I'd be doing, just like we have the GPS and
Yeah.
you can do our topos off of that.
I think it'd be better to have it surveyed, have a surveyor do it. If they're gonna do spot grades, you can generate a topo from that anyway, so it's really,
Okay.
and I
We have
think,
the
Joe,
exact
you
same.
said you thought the DEC would require that anyway, right? Or,
I don't know about the DEC.
oh,
I don't know that they would require.
Okay.
it, 'cause
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get it not to be your fault.
What's that?
Trying to get it so it's not your fault. Okay,
I'll take the lumps if I have to.
you'll take the lumps, all right.
Okay, so we do that, we have some mitigation buffer, planting plan.
Right.
And some spot elevations to determine the accuracy of what we're proposing.
Perfect. And Kevin's going to give us, I fully expect the requirement for a floodplain permit. Okay.
So the floodplain permit, how do we obtain that?
You-
It'll be coming from me.
Yes, you talked to Kevin.
Okay, Kevin. I haven't met you all, so I can't,
It's all right.
No, he's our building inspector, so,
I noticed the badge, I figured it meant something.
yeah. You got to watch your step. Okay, great.
Right, well, thank you very much.
All right, if you have
And,
any
we'll
more
get this
questions and
into
we're not
the
here,
29th,
yep. If you have questions and we're not here, you know to reach Kirsten?
always bug her.
Yeah, okay,
Good.
great, thank you.
Thank you for the vote of confidence, Joe.
Yeah, no, absolutely, it was well deserved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yep. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is calendar number 09-25WP. This is the Brand Residence on 116 North Salem Road, also known as 121 in Cross River, New York, an application for an addition. So come on up and state your name.
Put in my junk here.
It's all right.
Be on your way. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good night.
Good evening, Lee Brand.
Right. So we've gotten the application here. It is within the wetland buffer, but it's a very, very small addition, a 5x10 addition. I don't really have many questions. I think we could, when I talked with Jan, he was comfortable if we handled this administratively. Joe, I think you're nodding, you're okay with that too? So I'd look for a motion to make this an administrative permit.
I so move.
Okay, Charlene,
Second it.
second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Sorry to make you wait till the end, but
It's okay, the easiest way for the last.
yes. So what we have done now, I think you've talked with Jan before?
I haven't, but my engineer has.
Right. So what this is we, by doing this, we waive a public hearing, we direct him to handle it. He can make any comments about if there's a need mitigation or anything, but it really looks like a small project, so we are, very, very comfortable handling that without a lot of discussion among us here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for providing such information that we're comfortable doing that.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a discussion, and this was a status report on the proposed zoning amendments. So we thought we were going to have a zoning, that the board would accept basically all that we had reviewed except for steep slope and excavation and fill. And when we got there, while we hadn't received, we had discussed roosters, but we had not received really direction on anything to change with the roosters. But the the town board wanted to see that the prohibition on roosters was lifted, did not want to have a requirement for a special use permit for roosters. So they did not vote on the law at that point, and told Judd really to bring
Roosters back.
put the roosters in, allow the
Yes.
roosters, and
Yeah,
to,
eliminate the rooster prohibition.
yeah, and to then bring it back for consideration on,
The 24th.
24th. I wrote down the
Just
wrong.
what they told you that you'd be debating in law school, right?
Yeah. Was quite surprised, but yeah.
Yeah. So we are hopeful that all of the amendments except excavation and fill and steep slope will go through.
Yeah, I anticipate everything but those two will be adopted.
Right. Now,
And then apparently now there's an additional
so
helipad prohibition. that-
Right.
Yeah.
So I listened to the part, so I got notice that, I guess I hadn't realized that was on the agenda. And I got notice that that had been looked at the town board meeting last night. And they said they were referring it to us. And I thought they said, and they have 30 days to get back, but then I realized they had not set a public hearing or anything. So I panicked and thought we had to discuss it tonight. We do not. So there is a helipad in there. I think,
My assumption is that they'll go ahead and adopt the zoning code and then treat that as an amendment to
right.
the newly adopted zoning code, as opposed to
Well,
trying to leave that in.
I think so. I mean, I think because it's not really in code form yet.
Right, and we closed the public hearing on the code.
Right. So maybe that will be part of the next.
It's going to get parked, yeah.
Next public hearing with a statement. So the one thing, as I did send it out, it will get referred to us, but as you look at it, the one thing, it's only for residential, 50 acres or more, but there's and it will go to the ZBA for approval. And I'm wondering, I just don't know whether there should be some site plan element in there, and whether maybe the ZBA is right to handle it, or maybe it needs a little.
There were a number of restrictions in that proposal, radius, that 50 acres had to have a certain circumference.
Yeah, I printed
Had to
it.
have the ability for fire, police,
No,
and
that's-
emergency services to gain access without permission. If there were any lighting, I believe it would have to be temporary and then removed.
Well, they said no nighttime except for emergency. I mean, so there's a lot of things in it, but I'm just glad we don't have to talk about it tonight, because it came last minute. So I'm sure we'll get to see it, take a look at it. Yeah, I think there's guidelines that would apply. The other thing I will say is that they also had a discussion on short-term rental. And Tony had sent a number of things to the housing committee, who then came back with the matrix that was shared, that sort of talked about principles. And the principles of that versus what was in the consultants after the comprehensive plan law is a little bit different. It's a little bit different from one Kevin has looked at. So it's not really in code form yet, so I don't know what might get referred to us. They did not talk about that. But that might also be something that we would.
I can forward you the draft if you don't already have it.
It has not been circulated to the board, but I think.
Yeah, it was modeled, Judd, from Essex, Connecticut.
Okay.
They spent many, many months, 4 or 5 municipalities all referred me to their mayor the mayor was very helpful, sent me a live document to look at, please.
Right.
We added a lot of guidelines into it, and then met with the housing commission. They were gonna add a couple more layers potentially, or maybe remove a couple things in there. Greg preliminarily has looked at it, kind of says it's close, but we obviously have to get everybody's blessing and maybe tweak it.
So, and the other thing is, I do know North Salem is also looking at short-term rentals at the same time, so it might be useful, maybe Kirsten, you could reach out and see if they have a draft law, and, I mean, just to the more we can kind of be close to what other people are, or at least be informed about what other towns around are, the better.
We, at least when I started researching it, I took all the hot spots that I know have a lot of short-term rentals. You know, up in Vermont, Newport, all the places where everybody goes for short-term rentals. Lisa and I have done some research, and we've probably targeted 41 of them that are already taking place that we know of in our municipality, not being controlled at all.
Right. I think the housing committee said they had over, it was on the thing, but I think they indicated over 150.
Well,
So-
that wasn't a clear statement. There are at least 41 residents that we know of. I don't mean postings for availability, but there are
Right.
at least 41 homes that we know of that are.
So I think, right, I think there's, I would probably say, I think there's 41 in my community, so townwide, I would guess there's more. But it's just something that we should be aware might be coming to us for review, discussion, I don't know. I mean, Tony has clearly turned to the housing committee for information on that.
Keep in mind, just so you know, the state is also reviewing it right now.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a good possibility there will be in the next legislative law, because we had a death in Rockland County of a mother and daughter, and that is what triggered it, just like when smoke detectors and Vita guys like Garlettis died, they woke up. There will be state regulations probably in the beginning of 26.
And they did pass a law that requires registration. So, and they will share the registration with towns that want it. So they have something that really enforces it through the booking agency or through the homeowner if they do it independently. So we should have, and I believe that was to start, I want to say at the end of this month, so that we might be able to, within the next quarter, they said it quarterly, they would be able to provide information. So we might get a number on how much there is and get a better sense.
The model that I worked over was a yearly inspection of all SDRs, ensuring smoke, fire, probably fire extinguishers too, to make sure their insurance policy had it registered that they had these there, so they were cleared, so there was insurance covering for liability. And every year there would be a renewal, and you needed to be inspected. And we were looking for parking, verifying septic, and a whole host of other things.
Yeah, I think parking, bedroom count, but I also, on the call, and this is just by living near some of this, garbage containment, parking, and, noise are the things that come up. And also signage. To have some, or have somebody aware of how to get in touch with the owner. Now, if it's owner residence required, then that's a different thing.
We
So
have that in this list already.
Yeah.
I'll forward it to everybody so you can see it.
So there's a lot of stuff we can talk about, but not tonight anymore. So I'm looking for for a motion to approve the minutes of March 18th, 2025.
And I have one other thing I want to ask a question about.
Oh, okay.
I did quickly read through the town board meetings and I saw something about roosters, but you just brought it up again. What do they want to do or take out?
They want to allow roosters with no restrictions.
I
am totally-
It's a bad decision.
It's a,
That is ridiculous.
That's their determination. I think their thought was that there is an existing noise code that can deal with roosters.
Roosters?
How do you, if you say they're not restricted, how do you deal with the noise code?
I think this is going to have to run its course, and
And they're gonna have to be.
And who do we get to call when that happens? Because
I get calls every week, rooster calls.
Yeah.
On roosters.
I believe it,
I've had
because
people
somebody
come and
had
tell
one on
me
our
to,
lake, and at
eliminate
4
them.
o'clock, 4:30 in the morning.
I live near a rooster. The
well,
only
and they're
problem
not
with the
just,
rooster
oh,
Is that it was in the summertime, because,
The wind-
that doesn't happen just at the break of dawn. It happens
Right.
all day.
Yeah.
And it's unpredictable, so
Right.
you're out and it's quiet, and then suddenly, it's like.
Yep. I live next to a rooster too.
and you're on a phone call, it's not, if you have, in the summer, if you have windows open and stuff, it's
Yeah, I
there.
live next to a rooster.
So,
And do we
This
know
was
why
clearly-
they pulled it out?
one person was adamant,
There was a view that it would be kind of impractical or unfair to allow a flock of chickens without having a rooster.
Civil
So, because
rights.
they couldn't have sex on it.
well, you couldn't, because you couldn't have, you can get eggs without a rooster, but you
Yeah.
can't grow, you can't have a growing population of chickens without a rooster.
But don't we limit that anyway in a residential area? So you don't want that, so you don't.
We,
Is any-
I think we
Fucking
tried,
Are there any Seinfeld fans? Seinfeld, there's a line where Frank Costanza says, "I'm really confused. You've got the hen, you've got the chicken, you've got the rooster. Which one goes with which?" That's all that.
Oh, man.
we tried to say, maybe a special use permit would be appropriate. And if there were a lot of complaints, maybe something could be done to, I don't know, fence it in or try to do something. But they said, no special use permit. They want it as of right.
Okay.
Okay. Motion to approve the minutes of March 18th.
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
Yeah, I don't think you were here, so you
He
can't.
was on vacation.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our next meeting is on May 20th, 2025, as we've talked about a few times tonight. So I'd look for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
You all rested up now?
Yeah.